You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers. Welcome to OffHeap episode 91. Hey everyone. Hopefully you're having a great beginning of summer. Even though it looks like I am next to all these guys, that's just a trick of the camera. But to be fair, Bob, Josh, and Michael are together at the Roundhouse where everything started, right? So kudos for long summer days and having fun and just enjoying it. This has been long overdue. We usually at Round Summer we slow down a little because of life and kids and everything else, but we carve a little bit of time just to give an update on the interesting news that are happening. For those tuning in for the first time, my name is Freddie Guime. I'm a distinguished engineer at Expedia Group, author, speaker, Seattle Java User Group co-organizer, and I'm here with my usual suspects.
Hi everybody, Bob Pollan, senior software engineer at Snowflake, Apache Software Foundation member, Java champion, and CJUG board.
Josh, still getting used to saying that, aren't you?
I am employed.
Sorry.
That's okay. Josh Juno, senior software engineer, author, speaker, and podcaster, and I love Java.
Michael Manella, director at Broadcom, responsible for the open source Spring team, author, speaker, Java champion, and curmudgeon at large.
And then with that, let's just get into it. All right, conferences. I think this one is Bob's.
Yep. So the Apache Software Foundation will be throwing Community Over Code again, September 11th through 14th in Minneapolis. So the call for proposals has already been out. Talks have been selected. So we should start seeing those talks get published out to the website. So now it's just, looking for people to show up and sponsor the event and go have a good time in Minneapolis with the ASF. So lots of different tracks for this conference. And again, it's probably one of the most unique conferences where you're not going to get any vendor pitches. You're talking to the people that are committing to these projects directly. So kind of a unique opportunity. If you go there, you're going to meet some very interesting folks.
All right.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah, and the next one is Michael's.
Yep, SpringOne. So SpringOne is going to be back at VMware Explorer. So VMware Explorer is going to be back in Las Vegas at the Venetian, August 25th through the 28th. And so this year, SpringOne will be a one-track conference within that. And so check it out. We should have all your usual suspects from the engineering team on Spring. So meet your favorite Spring committers and come check it out.
That is awesome. 2 worthwhile conference to go to. All right. And now let's dive into the news. First one, OpenAI buys Windsurf. Who put that one in?
It's you, right, Freddie?
Yeah, I think I did. And the interesting part is I think is interesting news because Windsurf is essentially ahead of, well, it might not be after the end of this, when this podcast gets published, but because everything is moving so fast, right? But it is one of the definitely the top contenders for big code refactoring, right? I got the opportunity to use a little bit of their demo license. You can use it for a couple of I think they give you 2 hours or 6 hours or something like that of the real GPT-4 backed code assistant, and it was super sweet because I had this project and I was just asking it, all right, I want you to extract the data layer out of this big glue of things, because I was prototyping, I was just throwing everything in the kitchen singing together, right? And then it's oh, okay. And then it did that, and then I said okay, put me in front of an interface so I can have different implementation of the data store. And then it did that. And then the last part I asked it is making an implementation using H2, and it it's not that it was long work. Like it will have taken me probably like 2 hours to do it. But the interesting part is the way that the like I think these code author things are gonna go, and I think Windsurf is just the first one, but everybody else is they now do this thing where they try to analyze your code and create kind of like a knowledge graph, or it's probably not a knowledge graph, or some kind of like essential intelligence about what your code is doing, which then assist on the refactoring questions that you have, right? And that OpenAI showed an interest and bought it. It's cool because that means that it might be free for a little bit. But it just shows that all this code assistant tools are shaping the way. If you're like me as a I'm not technically a distinguished engineer and I was working on a small project, but it shows the potential for you to be able to start untangling larger code bases by just saying like, this is what I want to do instead of just typing the actual code yourself, right? So super, super interesting.
So Freddie, you're doing what the young kids call is vibe coding, I think, right?
I am vibe architecting, man.
Yes.
No. Vibe architecting. That's
Excuse me. I mean, Freddie, everything you just laid out about that acquisition is interesting. The thing that hit me though is the fact that they just spent $3 billion on an IDE for one. Like I actually wonder. I haven't looked up what JetBrains is valued. Like I'd love to know like where they rank comparatively. But also like I actually looked up OpenAI. Their last round of funding was in October. They raised $6.6 billion. Now, granted, it was on a $157 billion valuation, so it's like crazy valuation. But like they raised $6.6 billion, so they literally write a check for half of the money they just raised for this one acquisition. That is huge. Bob, you're in a startup. You know how big of a deal.
Yeah, no, that's an insane amount of money.
Exactly.
And it's probably not a huge startup. I bet that is a small amount of people that are delivering that product.
That's a hype valuation.
I mean, it's really so. I have not used Windsurf, so I can't speak to whether they've differentiated themselves. I have definitely used code assistants. The vast majority of the code assistants I've been using still kind of goes back to your general search where I'll type in something in Google and then Google will give me back an assistant in the search results that will write my code for me in snippets. And that's where I've had some success with that. Like I have not gone down the path that it sounds like Freddie has gone down to trying to do larger refactors and bigger movements with these AI assistants. I just haven't tried that yet.
I've tried it with Cursor. I have not tried it with this one.
Okay.
And so my experience with Cursor is, my hunch is that it's a similar experience. And it's one of the things that frustrates me is I think about it as a paired programming experience. And what I struggle with this is for all of these IDEs, I am the observer, not the driver. And so I need to figure out how to get the driver to do what I want. Instead of just pass the damn keyboard to me so I can type what I want. So I was actually talking to somebody, I was actually talking to Martin Lippert the other day about this. He's the lead of STS. He's the guy in the Spring ID. And we were talking about how that interaction model, is there a way to improve that? Like, because that's one of the things that I would rather hack at something and then have it tell me fix it, tell me how to improve it. Like all of that kind of stuff. Even if it requires, I know that you don't do this today in an IDE, but like back, when I was coding regularly, like the keyboard shortcuts for organizing imports, like IDEs do that all stuff automatically now, but like that kind of like, tell me now kind of thing. I'm ready for your interaction. Like flipping that whole model, it drives me crazy having to type in prompts into try and get things. I feel like it's not a tool anymore.
So I have a $3 billion idea.
Ready? I'll do it for half. Like I'll go for 1.5.
No questions asked.
Exactly.
It almost sounds to me like you're trying to do some actual development on an iPad. When you can't type on that screen, right? So you need to have a keyboard. Why don't you just use a name laptop? So yeah, I guess I could kind of see prompt engineering for an AI editor. I just can't see actually making things with that.
Yeah, I mean the examples that I've seen that they work feels very Rails or Grails to me. Whereas I ask you to do something like I've got a domain.
Scaffolding.
Exactly, 100%, exactly. I've got a domain class. I want the CRUD operate. I want the CRUD controller in front of it. I want the DAO for it behind. Like that's stuff that they can all do really well. But on the other hand, so can Grails and Rails and other things that like we don't need AI for that stuff.
I wonder if I wonder if it's more geared towards those that don't know how to develop applications like we do.
So that is one area that I have found it useful is in things that I haven't done in a while. So or ever. So I wanted to write a batch job not that long ago where I was pulling files down from Google Drive. I've never used the Google Drive API before. So I'm like, get me started. How do I do the dance to authenticate and that kind of stuff? Like once ChatGPT got me that scaffolding, I was good to go and I went on my own.
Yeah.
But like to Bob's point, I think it feels scaffoldy to me. Or get started kind of thing. And so I haven't seen it successful in higher level stuff yet.
No.
No, but I think it might be coming, and I think I guess that's the
don't get me wrong. Like 5 years now, I'm scared of my job, but like it's not there now.
Well, the interesting dynamic that I think comes out of that for me is what happens when you like Bob call it, right? Like vibe coding, like you're vibe coding, but like vibe architecting, like if you just vibe code all your life, you wouldn't know that this is what I wanted. I want you to extract my data layer. I wanted you to create an interface. I want you to decorate it with this, right? Like these are things that come from essentially getting your hands dirty and just understanding these patterns very intimately. And if a vibe coder, comes in and then suddenly all the things are built, but you don't understand why they build it that way, then you lose that visibility of being able to be effective at higher layers. But who knows? Maybe this new ChatGPT, you can just ask it, okay, re-architect it in a decent way, and that's all you need to do, and then it does it for you.
I need the keyboard shortcut for fix my shit.
It almost seems to me like those IDEs they used to when you back in the Java Swing days, or even back in the when you have a IDE that builds a web page for you, and then it throws in all this code that you don't need and you don't know what it's doing, but it works, right? It almost feels like some of these developers, if they're using these AI agents to create their code, they're not really sure exactly what it's doing.
It's just AI that's good at doing things like cache invalidation, naming things, finding my off by one errors. Like, let's do that.
Right.
That's what I need.
I mean, seriously, but yeah, that's exactly right. Like that's the kind of thing that like
name this variable for me in a good way. It's like, oh,
I want to be able to hack at the stuff that I know, crank that out, and then then to Bob's point, I want to then apply fix my shit. Like that's what I wanted to do.
All right. Well, let's keep going with the news because I think we can talk about this for a very long while. CVE Foundation is founded. Who was this? This was you, Bob, right?
That was actually a collaboration of me and Michael, both posting kind of similar things at similar times.
Bob found the end result.
I found the CVE Foundation post, but the reason why that post even exists is because of an article on government funding cuts for the Trump administration to various government organizations. So, I mean, CVEs were traditionally through a small number of government contractors, like MITRE is one of them. There are others, I believe, too.
Yeah, there's a program that funds the database that's behind all of them.
And with that being cut, what a lot of the folks involved in these, it's like, okay, we're not going to do CVEs anymore. So people realize this is a critical need and created a foundation around it. Now, as of now, I haven't heard a ton of information since the founding, other than they are putting together, a structure with the foundation itself. But anytime you have a foundation that comes out of a lack of funding, the question then becomes, how successful can the foundation be at
Who's
acquiring the funding?
who's funding the
Who's
foundation?
funding the foundation?
Well,
As somebody that does fundraising for a foundation, this is a very interesting question for me.
We don't have funding. Let's fund a foundation.
So, good on the folks involved in CVEs decide, hey, we need to be able to spin this out. Like, it's a critical need for IT infrastructure to be able to have a program around collecting vulnerabilities, classifying them, and classifying when they're fixed, making the communities that are exposed to those vulnerabilities aware.
But this is like a multi-million-dollar industry, just the CVE portion of it, right?
Sharing the information, scanning for it, like all that's multi-million-dollars. Maintaining the database, like that's the dirty work that nobody wants to do, right? There's no money in the database itself. That being said, though, Bob, when we originally found this issue, government had pulled funding.
Yes.
Foundation was founded. They reinstated the funding, didn't they? Like I thought they backtracked on that. And so like when they did that, like do we know what the state of that is since then?
That I do not know. Because when you look at the foundation news, they kind of give a background on why they founded the foundation, the fact that there were cuts, first funded by the NSA and NIST, then went to the Department of Homeland Security and CISA, which, are all, places where you'd expect CVE funding to go from.
None of them bad.
But yeah, it is actually really hard to keep up with all the changes in the administration that's currently in power right now to know what's being funded, what's not being funded, whether we're tariffing, we're not tariffing. Like things move pretty fast. So it's possible. I just haven't kept up with the news.
It's said that it's been reinstated, but that was as of April 16th.
Okay, but they've given an update on the foundation as of May.
Mm-hmm.
So even with the funding being reinstated, it does seem like
I'm just wondering,
the foundation is still moving ahead.
Yeah. Does the foundation those receiving the funding, do they just put that into the foundation and do it that way, or like?
It does not actually say, participation, government, security body. I mean, and there are other governments that are interested in this and in funding this research. I know just from, the ASF and what we've been looking at funding from security related initiatives is there's a lot of different places that have an interest, from large corporations to government entities that are looking to find ways, hey, can we throw some money at this problem and make sure that there's responsiveness, the community is engaged, and they're going to fix things that come up in the future?
Okay, really quick, in their FAQ, how are you different? Blah, blah, blah. Due to the funding extension, this effort has been given an 11-month time frame to plan and execute. Foundation sincerely wants to get to work with CISA and MITRE to collectively envision a better, more stable vision for the program and put it in place. So it sounds like nothing quite yet, but they're hopeful that this will be a way to centralize it.
Yeah. And I mean, I have not looked. So they're a 501c3 not-for-profit. So they're very similar to the Apache Software Foundation, where they are in fact a charity. And with that comes kind of some additional rules that they would not have if they were just simply a government contractor organization. But it also opens the door up for, hey, maybe we're going to be able to receive funding from more places.
Sure.
Maybe we could offer some more benefits for that as, a not-for-profit. There's the potential for tax write-offs that may not have been there for certain entities that wanted to help with this cause. And that's definitely a motivator for, places to fund things like the ASF and charity-based not-for-profits in the US.
I haven't looked to see if the foundation related stuff has an impact on like actual CV, like this whole CNA process around granting CVs and that, like, is that part of the foundation? Is that going to take the foundation to take on that work as well? Or are they?
So that's an interesting question, because then you've got to figure out, like, so essentially you're funneling money through a not-for-profit to other entities. And there are, what I can say, having done some of this myself, is there are rules on how that money can be handed out. Because like charities, you're not allowed to inure your members, or you have to be very much making sure that that money is being sent out to solve your exempt purpose.
But I mean, like, my assumption has always been that if I want to be a CNA, I need to pay someone. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, that could be a way to fund the foundation as well, right? Like,
Oh, you pay for the privilege
of granting CVEs. Yeah, you like, exactly. So like VMware was a CNA, and so we would reserve a block, like this is the CVE block for this year that we would get.
Okay.
As we had CVEs, we would eat through the block, but like we were the ones granting them. But there's a process around that as well, with regards to, like, we had the right to, if somebody thought there was a CVE and we disagreed, we had the right to say no. And then if they wanted to, they could go to Moderne appeal, and like all of that process. Does the foundation take on that as well? Or is it just the database, or like?
Well, it at least on the structure, they still listed. They actually listed the 5 roots: Google, CV, Jeepert, Red Hat, and Thales Group as their CNAs, and they roll into the CVE board. So I think they plan it. At least from the picture, it feels like everything is moving in.
Hey, okay, so there's the CNAs, there's MITRE. So that's the current version, the diagram. But how does it?
Oh, wait, okay. They are talking about build CNA scoped. They are mentioning CNAs, but like everything in the back to what they published on here feels like it's more around the governance of the program rather than administering. Like, I don't see anything that talks about administering the funding that you're talking about that would go through CNAs. So I don't know if that funding would then go to the CVE Foundation versus somewhere else.
Got it.
That's a good question though. But I think there's probably a lot of, oh crap, our funding got cut. What do we do?
Oh yeah.
And
I mean,
this
that's
is
that's literally what
them figuring it out.
Yeah, like, I mean, the temporary funding gives us 11 months to basically figure our stuff out, right? I mean, it's
and just to give some context for people who think we're speaking an alien language, the CVEs, right? Like the common vulnerabilities and exposure, these essentially drive a lot of, like, if you're in a large company, you probably have security training. If you're an engineer in a large company, you have like, there's cross-site scripting attacks, and there's, SQL injection attacks, and every new flavor of thing that happens. Now there's going to be a bunch of CVEs coming for prime injection attacks, right? So the idea is that like this organization essentially dictates a lot, or not dictates, but it identifies and classifies a lot of these vulnerabilities, the big ones, right? And they give it a score from 1 to 9 to figure out the severity. And this actually, in turn, animates an impulse. You're essentially your security team, if you're in a big company, or your DevOps team, to like, oh, we need to patch things up. We need to like close this CVE holes. Java had a very infamous one. What is it, 4 or 5 years ago with Log4Shell? December.
Yep.
I still have my T-shirt. And that was a CVE. So that's what that's the job they do, and that's why this is kind of important, because essentially this helps us like bring focus to the areas that are, we are vulnerable, and protects us from like essentially like the third-party attackers or bad actors. So yeah, like if you don't know what a CVE is, definitely go to the show notes and read about them, because knowing these and understanding why these are important makes you a much better engineer anyways. So,
and I mean, it does seem to, like, this type of thing does seem to reflect the change of lots of large companies realizing that security funding is a thing that is not just the government's problem, it's companies' problems. So I mean, looking at initiatives like, a lot of these Linux Foundation initiatives like OpenSSF, Alpha Omega are all projects put together to help bring companies that are interested in security funding, and then find a way that, like Alpha Omega and OpenSSF will figure out ways to fund things. Like, so there's a collaboration between Alpha Omega and the Apache Software Foundation right now to help with build infrastructure and release infrastructure, building SBOMs and building tooling so that open source projects are able to release open source code with traceability to what it depends on, so companies can figure out, hey, CVE hits, what am I vulnerable to? So, perhaps this, is kind of an extension of that, where you're being able to kind of branch out and get these donations through a foundation versus more government based programs. So, in the end, maybe this is a positive thing, but it does depend on industry recognizing that there is, hey, we got some skin in this game, and we've got to set aside money to make sure this works. Like, if I'm a cloud provider and I have hundreds of Fortune 500 companies operating on there, I better make sure my infrastructure is not vulnerable to this stuff, because I'm liable for that.
Yep.
That type of accountability might, in a foundation structure, maybe makes that more resilient, I guess is what I'll say, by having more diverse funding sources.
Yep. Now, the next news item is Microsoft. There's being a round of layoffs on Microsoft. Who put this one in? Was that?
I don't know. I feel like this came in through a number of us, because we all have a lot of connections at Microsoft that we have a tremendous amount of empathy for, since I don't know, just looking at LinkedIn, it seemed to hit the Java side of Microsoft disproportionately high. So there's a lot of good folks that, I think some of us have personal relationships at Microsoft that are now looking for work because of these layoffs. People that, speak at conferences that are kind of luminaries. And I guess it's not a surprise anymore, seeing what the kind of the current climate is, but it's also just like, oh boy, if it's happening to these folks, like,
yeah,
we all should be a little bit worried.
Yeah, no, like they were considered like stalwarts on the field, right? So that they got affected. It's a signal. Yeah,
If you're looking to hire, scroll through the ones that were let go from Microsoft. There's really good talent there to pick up.
Yeah.
It looks like the majority of people were software engineering individual contributors.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's and who knows, like we're thinking, like, maybe we're still not done with the contraction that happened after, I guess, COVID glut, but and so yeah, it's stay put, let's write this together, and hopefully we'll see you on the other side. Next one, Michael.
Spring AI is 1.0.
Yeah.
No, and you got a super fan. I love it. We use it for projects. I know, like, it's hard going with the snapshots, because everything was moving, and every move it was like, oh crap, I have to refactor again. But then after, like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. It was the right thing to do, right? But it was just like now that it's finally 1.0 is like, all right, we're gonna move to 1.0, and now things are gonna be somewhat stable, instead of just trying to go with the latest snapshot. But yeah, super happy, makes life super easy. Technically, to do quote unquote AI, or essentially to consume these chat agents, what you really just need is a rest endpoint and a way to call it. So you can just use web client or whatever, REST client, whatever you want, and then you can just build all your stuff. But the question is, why would you want to do that, right? Like, there's all these things that come with calling, like AI, like processes, like keeping track of memory, keeping the ability to register tools, to have structured outputs. And Spring AI makes it super, super easy, and accelerates the way to experiment with all of that. So yeah, big fan.
Yeah, it's a monumental effort that by the team. My hats off to all of them that worked, as well as all the community contributors. I was telling Mark Pollock, who's the lead of the project, today when I was talking to him. When I think about the history of Spring, I can't think of another project that had this many eyeballs and this much industry pressure on it from the first commit that this project had. I mean, even Spring Boot, like Spring Framework, nobody knew about. Spring Boot, even when it was being developed, I mean, some people thought it was cool. It was being poking around, but it didn't blow up until it was released. Spring AI from the first commit had the whole world, like they had the Java community on their shoulders, and they really did an amazing job with everything. Obviously I'm biased, but I do believe that it is the most complete offering today on the JVM for generative AI.
Yeah, and if like OpenAI is listening, like, and they have $500,000 to spare.
Still got 3 billion left from the latest raise.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, no,
I'm telling you, we'll take half. We'll do it for half.
from what I've used, I really like it. Seems nice, easy. It abstracts away a lot of the detail and makes it concise and easy to read and easy to get things done.
And
Very nice.
One of the big things, obviously, with it going 1.0 is it now means that it's supported for production use and all the caveats of backwards compatibility and all the things that the milestones in early releases that we've had up to now, all that goes out the window. One caveat being that this is still a very fast moving corner of the industry. And so like there are certain things within our library that are dependent on other things. So like if OpenAI decides to rip up their API and rebuild it, like dude, there's only so much we can do here.
Mhm.
So but like that's, I mean, even still, it would still be a small impact to an existing application. So please check it out. Feedback is appreciated. Again, my hats off to the team, both on Spring as well as the massive community effort. And if you go and take a look at the number of contributors that were involved, it's really been an impressive effort from start to finish.
All right.
So how long until we get an AI JSR?
Not saying that the mic in front of me.
I just waiting for Michael to be speechless. That's
It's like nose goes. I'm not running that one. Oh, I wonder if they're gonna be batching that together.
see what you did there.
Moving on.
All right.
All right, next one.
Actually, the next one's mine as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of Spring, Rod Johnson has kind of come out of the woodwork a bit. Obviously he hasn't been involved in Spring for a long time, but he has been actually playing with the JVM stuff a lot recently. He's actually really into Kotlin right now. But one of the things he's been playing with is an agentic framework. It's a higher level abstraction. The idea there with his framework, it's called
Embabel.
Embabel, is that how you pronounce it? Okay.
That's how I'm pronouncing it.
I'm not going to get any better, so I'm going to go with that. The idea with it is beilding agents that you can define a process to get to a goal. That is fundamentally the idea there. And so think of back, struts and even Spring MVC. You've got actions back in the struts days. Like you can assemble, like I want the AI to do this set of actions to achieve a goal. And so there's a programming model around structuring things in that way, in a more dynamic way. So it's interesting. Full disclosure, I haven't played with it, but it is from Rod, so I would expect a lot of the Spring related stuff to be familiar. Yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah, no, I
That's
definitely.
interesting.
Yeah. All right.
I'm sure the next one is Josh's.
Yes.
What do we have next? Jakarta EE 11 core and web profiles came out earlier this year. You can go and check them out now if you're interested in building microservices and smaller applications, web-based. front ends. You can use the core and the web profiles. The full platform should be coming out soon. Maybe even by the time that this gets released, it should be out very soon. So keep an eye out. And just to really quickly mention, if you're interested in Jakarta EE 12, there is a board up on GitHub. You can see the release status of what's going on with everything. And it's actively moving along and getting traction. So keep an eye out for that one as well.
All right. The next item of news, that's you, Bob, right?
Yeah, so this is one I've been following just because it's an open source legal battle. So very typical for our show, right? It's Nats. And it's actually one of those things that we hadn't recorded long enough that it got sort of resolved in the same time that it became controversial. So just the background of this one is Nats is an open source project that's part of the Linux Foundation. And to those that may not be familiar with how open source projects within foundations are typically founded, is there's a period where the project is kind of adjusting to the foundation's rules. And the ASF, they call it incubation. Other foundations, I can't remember if there's a term for it in the Linux Foundation. They may also call it incubation. But during this time, these projects are supposed to be building their community. There's a number of like things that you need to build out on the website. And one of the kind of the major things that most software developers don't really think too much about is the trademark. Again, the logo, the name of the project, all get created as a trademark. And that trademark typically, in fact, always, and gets assigned to the foundation, since you want your project to be kind of managed by a neutral third party when you have multiple corporate entities kind of feeding in and sustaining that project as well as individuals. So generally trademarks take kind of a while. And with the Nats trademark, it especially was taking a while because there was some dispute over whether they could use it at all. So sometimes it takes a while for that to work through the trademark office. And during that time, while Nats was still in incubation, the company that was pursuing the trademark, so it was not assigned, it was pledged as part of joining the Linux Foundation and going through their incubation, but never actually transferred. The company decided, nope, we're not going to do that. We want to keep the trademark and then continue building the project, with the trademark within our corporate governance rather than through the Linux Foundation. This caused all sorts of problems. And actually, since this is common to all foundations, definitely stirred up a lot of just conversations around the ASF. It's like, okay, how do we do all of this? And as it turns out, most foundations, because of the nature of how long it takes to do trademark, acquiring the trademark, we also have it where, it's committed, but we will graduate projects without the trademark being signed over to the ASF as well. So the ASF would also be vulnerable to this type of situation. It's uncommon. Like, I don't actually recall another time that this has happened. But, in the end, you're donating a project to a charity or other type of not-for-profit, and it kind of is a bad look to go back on your word. And it looks like that's kind of where we ended up with Nats. As they have a joint statement about it going forward with the CNCF with as the Nats project. So I can only assume, although the article, I don't know if it actually says that they are going to in fact transfer the trademark. Still looking for that definitive statement in the new release that was May 1st that says, and they're going to give it to us and it will be fine. I guess maybe that's implicit. But I don't actually see it totally stated super clearly.
To align expectations and reinforce open governance, Sydney, or however you pronounce it, has agreed to assign its 2 Nats trademark registrations to the Linux Foundation.
There it is. Okay, that's what we had to be read to say. They
This-
did actually give in to the Linux Foundation's demands to have the trademark assigned to the project, so the project will be able to move forward. But as these things come up, it's like, okay, well, what are your options if this were to happen? Because if you don't have the trademark and the company refuses to assign it, well, does the project change its name? Do you go after the company and try to defend a trademark you don't possess, which sounds like kind of a loser?
And
I don't know.
I mean, to take a step back, like this wasn't a quick thing. Like
Right.
Nats joined the CNCF in 2018. We're talking over the course of 7 years. They've done security audits that the CNCF has paid over 900 grand on. They've done a legal thing that was another 10 grand. So like the CNCF has invested in the Nats project.
Yes.
They
They even paid them to help settle the trademark.
exactly. Yes. Yes. So like this really felt at the time to be come on, guys, what are you really doing? Like this ship should have sailed. But I guess there's just a really long rope they're trying to pull back on.
Right.
So I'm glad to see that it ended the way it did, at least from what we can tell.
It's kind of interesting to see that a trademark dispute with Major League Baseball over the name Nats related to the Washington Nationals delayed the transfer. Interesting.
I mean, the
Damn.
trademark stuff is actually very challenging because a lot of these they're going for international. So when you're thinking about this, you can't just think from US centric. You're thinking like globally. What does this mean? Is this a curse word in some other company?
Yeah.
Is this an aggressive word? There's lots of different things that can come up during this process that can kind of poo-poo the trademark. So there's a dance to this that takes some skill.
Sure.
All right. Well, we're glad that he got at least. I think it's solved. Let's see what happens. But and it is one of those where it is one of the things that will hit you from the left side and you don't even see it, right? But talking about things hitting on the left side, license changes. So it's interesting because we're like trying to organize our topic list, and in the time that we have been essentially just really just trying to enjoy summer, there has been a bunch of license changes, and we're like left wondering, is this now typical or what's going on? But let's start with the first one, which is OpenRewrite.
Yeah, so I think this was mine. So OpenRewrite is an open source project. It's run by the Moderne company, founded by John Schneider. He's the CEO of the company back when he was at Netflix. And it's a framework for essentially refactoring code. And so Moderne has built a company around it. They have open sourced the OpenRewrite project, as well as there's basically two key components to OpenRewrite. There's the engine that knows how to execute things, and there's a recipe. The recipe is the piece that actually looks at the code and says, okay, based on these conditions, do this thing. So there's a bunch of ones that are included with OpenRewrite, like renaming files and organizing imports and that kind of stuff. There's more complex ones like upgrading Spring and that kind of thing. Usually when a company decides that they are going to change whether or not something is open source or not, a fork is involved. Meaning if they're going to open source something, they usually hold back something and introduce a fork into the wild as open source. Or if they want to take something back, they fork the open source stuff, stop contributing to it, and they take it back. Moderne did something different this time, which is they just changed the license on some of the recipes. They've discovered from a business model perspective that the OpenRewrite engine itself is not as valuable as their business was originally believed. And the value is really in the recipes. If you follow along with Moderne over the past couple of years, you've seen them publicly call out open source projects, Spring included, for not including recipes with our refactoring, because that's stuff that we feel is valuable. That is the value in this ecosystem. And so We do have a product that builds on OpenRewrite. It's called Application Advisor. It uses our own proprietarily developed recipes. But as what Moderne did was, instead of just creating a fork and taking everything private, they just changed the license on a bunch of the recipes. That rubbed a bunch of people the wrong way that had already contributed to these recipes. So when you contribute to a open source project, you assume it's going to, your contribution will stay open. Well, when Moderne changed the license on certain recipes, there's specifically some security ones that this person wrote a blog post about. The person was Jonathan. I apologize in advance if you're listening. I'm going to butcher your last name. We'll include a link in the show notes. I'm not even gonna insult you with your last name. Yes. But he wrote a blog post about how he had made non-trivial contributions to the project under the understanding that he was contributing to an open source ecosystem. In his eyes, they changed the rules. Moderne has responded since then, basically saying that the majority of their stuff is trivial and whatnot. But the one thing that I think Moderne conflates is, in their response, is they bundled the recipes and the engine together in their response. They view them as one of the same. I don't think anybody using OpenRewrite views them as the same. I think most people using OpenRewrite view the engine as one thing and the recipes as something very different. And I think that's where Moderne, at least I personally disagree with Moderne with regards to their take on it. Like, the recipes that were open source should have stayed open source. They should have forked them back. They kept OpenRewrite as an open project. Talking about foundations, they actually tried putting in the Common House Foundation, changed their mind because of trademark concerns. They've since withdrawn that contribution. But it's just, there's a right way and a wrong way to go through this process, and I don't agree with the way Moderne did it.
No, and it's interesting because, yeah, like you said, right? Like if you're contributing to an open source project, right? And it's actually it's interesting because like I use OpenRewrite, here and there for like things like, yeah, upgrade my very XML beans to some kind of like Spring declarative thing, right? And it's kind of nice. Like, they are there. You download the tool, you use it, but it's so weird that yeah, like if I'm putting a recipe out, I am under like the impression that recipe just going to carry on. I can't believe that somebody would just take it and then say like, no, now it's private and you have to pay. I will have to pay for the thing that I wrote, right? So yeah, and it's kind of interesting because this is almost like the inverse
Now,
of the Lagon issue, where it was like people were using this engine as open source, like the actor was it Aka, and thinking it was going to be open source forever. And when they changed their license, it was like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere, and now I have to pay, right? So it's almost like the same issue, different side of the coin.
now, in fairness to Moderne, the license that they put in place doesn't put it completely behind a paywall. It's that you basically can't build a product with the recipes. So, like I said, we've got App Advisor. We can't package those recipes. If you're using our product, you can bring that recipe with you and use it, but we can't distribute it as our product.
Yeah, it's very similar.
It's not as harsh as some other relicense examples that we've seen. Sorry about
that.
No.
I'm just trying to draw some parallels. It's very similar to the Terraform license restructure, except it's almost like a little bit backwards in that they BSL licensed a lot of it, but the providers on Terraform are still MIT. So it's like they did the other way around, where it's like Terraform is BSL, so you can't make a product on Terraform anymore if you're of X size or you're competing with them. But you can still use the AWS providers, so they didn't go after the people that were creating the plugins to the different ecosystems.
I mean,
and then even with that, OpenTofu was still founded in the Linux Foundation with a I believe it's MIT licensed version of Terraform that still runs all of the MIT licensed plugins.
Yeah, I mean, I bet
or Mozilla. It's actually Mozilla license. Yeah.
I can imagine the conversation in Moderne with their board is you need a way to make more money off this thing. Like, can you change license on the engine itself? We could, but they're just going to fork it in. There's the value is already there. Like that Pandora's already out of the box.
Yeah.
So like, there's no, what else can you lock down?
Yeah.
It's the recipes. Like that's
The logic.
I completely understand. Like I can imagine that conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
But then the question is, all of that was very theoretical because I don't think anybody had ever done it that way before. The question I would have is now we're actually a few months later, or even like, let's project to the end of the year. Did it actually work?
Yeah. Has it actually changed your bottom line?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing because every license, I'll say almost every license change I've seen has not had the exact impact that the company that did it thought it would. Now, in some cases, it's definitely positive to the bottom line, but not as positive, and maybe there was a lot more backlash than they thought there was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies that I can think of, especially in this kind of developer frameworky type situation, like it definitely feels like it's most of those have ended up as a way to get yourself architected out of or designed out of solutions.
Yeah.
Like Akka, for example, like Akka wasn't Akka in Flink, for an example, and
Akka was in Flink,
and they
Akka was in Play, but they had exemptions for
yeah.
some of those, but not for Play.
Yeah, exactly.
Or-
Play was theirs. Flink was not.
Right.
Flink was an Apache project. I think like when that happened, everyone's like, "What are you doing, Flink?" And Flink's like, "We're locking the version. We'll figure it out."
Open Pico.
Probably. I don't. I
That's
never
the
followed up.
Apache fork of Akka.
Okay. Well, yeah. There you go. Yeah. So like it's all that does is it gets you architected out of the solution.
Out of
as
the
opposed to-
solution.
Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't always happen. Like Dr. Desktop that changed the license, and all of a sudden you're a $1 billion company. Like
Yeah.
it's
Right.
Yeah, that's that one. Yeah, they make we pay the piper.
Yeah. I mean, we saw that happen in our next one. So Redis, which changed their license a couple months ago, if not last year, now is changing it again, but similar circumstances where they didn't really consult the community. They just changed it to what was it? I think it was like a Redis service, like they created their own kind of BSL type license to get it out of the hands of the cloud providers. The response to that,
the cloud provider.
the cloud provider.
Yeah. The cloud provider, Amazon. Created a fork called Valky.
Created Valky in the Linux Foundation,
Yeah.
which is actually doing quite well. But now I think perhaps realizing some of their mistake, but probably the wrong way. Redis is relicensing to AGPL v3, which, while an open source license, an OSI approved open source license, very business unfriendly. As the AGPL v3 takes into account the network when it's determining if I modify the source code, whether I have to share that publicly.
So help me out with this one, because this obviously is not one I see every day.
Yeah.
So like, what is the nuance for this particular one?
Yeah, normally, like, so take GPL, for example, which is, Linux is built on GPL. And you have it where a program
Java is too, isn't it?
With the class path exception.
But yeah,
so there's some nuance
to
it. But you have programs that within those own programs have this license. But, if they're working with other programs through some sort of interface, where there's separation at the binary level, rather than like as a library that's my part of it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, these are two distinct programs working together.
There's a boundary somewhere.
I can still use the open source GPL version and make changes to this other stuff over here that's operating with it without those becoming infected with that license.
Okay.
Because, once you start pulling libraries together, they all need to be compatible, or else you end up having
From a license perspective.
from the license, or you have to end up giving those closed source changes you're making out to the public or donate it back to the project, which can hurt your competitive advantage. So yeah, we're working within it, but like, hey, if I put this on a server and then there's a network and then I make changes, that's fine, because over the network, there's nothing's physically bound together. So I should be able to evolve this however I want, fork it, make my commercial changes, unless it's AGPL, because then the network also becomes infectious. So if I make closed source changes to that program and it's available over the network, like a cloud provider providing Redis to the whole world, I am now accountable to produce those changes to the project.
So if I build an application using Redis, my app is on the hook because I'm using HTTPL.
No. So it's HTTPL licensed project. So if I make changes to Redis, it's not my app that's, I think.
Okay.
But if I make changes to the Redis side, but it's serving over the network, I now have to be able to provide those changes that I've made to Redis.
Okay.
So, if I'm trying to sell Redis and I'm making any modification to it, I'm kind of on the hook for that. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but this is how I've worked with open source. When you see that AGPL license come by and you're working for a company, it's, hey, can we use this and build proprietary software with it? It's just like, no, don't touch it.
Yeah, I mean, in my world, it's, unless it's Apache, MIT, or like a really permissive license, I got to get lawyers involved. It's just basically the way it works. It's like it's one of the super permissive ones.
Yeah, AGPL is one. It's like if you're working for a company and you're trying to sell software, you ain't touching AGPL because of the network adds a whole other complexity that you don't have with all these other licenses, including regular GPL.
It's interesting to see. I mean, going back to the is this going to have the desired effect at the bottom line? I mean, like, again, there's the fork out there. Valky is moving forward. We Spring Data talks to Valky team regularly. Like, it's Amazon has real investment behind it. So it'll be interesting to see. Even the Redis tile for Cloud Foundry that we include in Tanzu platform, like, it's no longer the Redis tile; it's the Valky tile. We renamed it and forked it and switched the implementation to Valky. So
I guess it depends upon how hard of a change is it to migrate over to something else. I mean,
they're binary compatible.
Yeah.
So, like they're binary compatible. The intent by Valky is that they will stay binary compatible and just add stuff to it.
So if a organization stands to lose a great amount of money, it makes great sense to take the time to refactor and move over to Valky.
Yeah, I guess the one question I don't have an answer to is I don't know many companies that run data stores like Valky or a database of any kind in production without some type of paid support.
Yes, yeah. I could find a few that do. I think there are risks to that. I mean, Redis is one of those things that doesn't just kind of degrade, it just kind of falls over. It's been my experience.
That's fair.
So having a managed service for Redis that's built in all of the fault tolerant. I mean, Redis can be very fault tolerant if you architected product, but like, if you're just learning it, it's like, hey, we just put our first Redis project and you have a single server up there, or maybe even a small cluster, and you're not administering properly, bad things can happen. So I've seen people do it. Now, that said, having somebody able to manage it is probably the better call.
Is there anybody behind Valky that, like, I could run on? Like, I know Amazon's heavily contributing to it, but like, is there anybody that's doing commercial support for Valky? Do we know?
I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day,
outside of like,
like
Tanzu,
is it really that different from offering commercial support to Redis? You're talking about a fork that forked at the time that the license change happened. So you're kind of supporting the same thing. It's just which trademark are you showing on the site?
I get the technical. I get what you're saying from a technical perspective, but like from a
where they're saying, hey, we're Valky's.
Yeah, can I kind of check that you're going to support like CVEs and that kind of stuff, right? Like,
good question. I am not certain. However, knowing that you've got a foundation behind it, there has been a lot of pressure for foundations to make sure that the projects living in those foundations are keeping up with CVs. So
Never mind. A quick Google finds a couple
Yeah.
of options.
That's
I've never
whether
proponent of it.
somebody is actually, committed to that. I mean, the Linux Foundation has several, again, security related special interest groups
Yeah.
that I'm sure. But are they directly funding Valky? I have no idea.
Yeah. It's like Michael is ready just to like write a check to non.
No, but I mean, like if you're in a highly regulated environment, right? Like, banking, insurance, those kinds of places, like you can't run this stuff unless you've got, a paid path to patches and whatnot.
Exactly.
Like you can't just pull open source off the shelf. So
Yeah. No, that's true. Well, and then just to move us along, the last one of the license change is Hibernate. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember who. This is the only one I liked.
well, then you can do it.
All right. So Hibernate, after 2 years of working through this, has gone from an LGPL license, which is the lesser of the GPL licenses, which is really meant for libraries, to the Apache software license
For most of it. Not all of it.
for most of it. But it sounds like they've removed enough things where they couldn't make it compliant. So it seems like
Does Hibernate
the
NVAR?
ORM is
Yeah.
is Apache too.
Yeah, Hibernate NVAR is the only thing that says that it'll be
Okay.
still it'll remain LGPL.
Okay. But yeah, what it seems like that allows is it looks like the ASF and Jakarta projects, they disallow the LGPL, and now being ASL Apache license, it's now compatible with those projects.
I wonder if this has anything to do with their move to Common House.
That's a good question. I do not know.
So I would assume that they would require a rather permissive license. I mean,
Yes.
I have not heard. It's been a long time since I talked to Aaron Schnabel, who runs the foundation. It's been a long time since I've talked to her to find out like what is the status of Hibernate going to the foundation. Last time I spoke with her, it was just a like proposal at that point. Nothing had concretely been transferred.
Yeah, I mean, I know from the AF even just from the ASF side, if you were Hibernate and you wanted to be included in like Tommy E or something like that, you'd have a problem because the LGPL 2, 2.1, and 3 are category X licenses on the ASF legal page. So
Ooh, wow.
thus
Well,
cannot be included in an Apache project that gets distributed with the Apache project.
I know
I
that
also,
they listed on Common House, projects. So
they've listed it for a while. Like I said, I don't know the status of all these because like I know Quarkus as an example is in the process. I don't believe it's been like the IP has actually been donated yet. Like have the documents been signed kind of thing.
all right.
We should have Aaron on to find out. Aaron, if you're listening, hint.
Let us know, drop us a line.
It's also probably worth mentioning this doesn't affect older versions. This is 7.0.0 beta 4 and forward of a Hibernate ORM on the Apache license.
This is the nicer, like Bob says, this is the nicer transition. Like usually you don't worry about going from LGPL to like, right. So
I imagine there are people that are on the older versions wondering what they're going to have to do.
Yeah, this is the rare, hey, we went more open.
Right.
After being more restricted.
Yeah.
Well, I think though, I mean, Red Hat put out a post a while ago that they were essentially looking at donating a large chunk of their application stuff, Quarkus being one, Hibernate being another,
Yeah.
like to a foundation. And like, I don't know this for sure, but it makes me wonder, is this their ability? Is this their positioning for, I'm not saying they're going to divest in it, but like it gives them an out if they need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see where that goes. What's interesting is that post has been out there for a while, and we haven't actually heard any announcement of a foundation. That seems like they've been mulling it for
Yep.
quite some time. Like
Yes.
usually you'd expect something like that. It's like, oh, and by the way, we're going to here.
Especially with the fact that, I mean, hybrid, I mean, like Aaron works for Reddit. Like,
Yes.
if anywhere you're gonna get this deal done, like you get it done with your employer.
Mm.
Like, is like that's my expectation. But
And it's,
I actually wonder if the Jakarta EE tie-ins between Hibernate and the JPA spec have anything to do with this.
Possible, I guess.
I
Huh?
mean, the gap between Hibernate and JPA keeps getting narrower and narrower to the
Right.
point where like now if I take my glasses off, what's the difference? Kind of
Couple of different annotations is about it.
thing. So
Yeah, they do have like a Hibernate FAQ that they are what they saying the reasons why they moved to Common House. It was government's frameworks, which emphasizes project self-governance. So I guess it's the we don't touch however you run it, you still do whatever you want. This is essentially a place for you to like put the project in, right?
yeah, my
So-
understanding was I forget if it was for Quarkus or Hibernate, one of the two. Like the main purpose was that there were contributors that did not want to contribute to a project that was a single vendor project. They wanted it in a neutral location.
Mm.
So they did it to open up between, which I can respect.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And it's Hibernate is not a small project.
Not really.
That's a huge project. So, all right,
Been around
kudos
for
for-
years. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
all right. Next one, Josh, you put this one in just as a heads up.
Wanted everyone to know that JDK 25 is coming to ramp down phase 1 on June 5th of 2025. That means that's really the first phase of going to GA. So really every month from that point forward, there are going to be a ramp down phase or a release candidate. But right now it's a good time to start taking a look at what's going to be in JDK 25 because this is the next LTS, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. Woohoo!
Ooh. All right. We'll cover the JSRs in due time as we get closer to GA. There seems to be some kind of fun stuff in there. All right. And that gets us to our topic. And we'll probably do almost like a lightning round for our topic.
A lot of news.
Since we have a lot of news. And it's RTO. So you know, when COVID happened, everybody's like, go home because you're infecting people. And you know, we kind of like learned how to work from home and it was kind of like disjointed, but a lot of us love it. Some of us, even on this call, never knew any other way of working. So, but now the companies are like, all right, well, you know, the COVID is, you know, it's not necessarily gone, but now things are going back to normal. You should come to the office, right? And it has been a lot of back and forth and resistance because it's very easy to get used to working from home, especially if you are a knowledge worker that can actually. Dude, look, Michael is in the office. already.
This is my actual office. This is not a. This is the picture from my actual office.
You're watching the broadcast.
Yep.
Michael's in the office.
Oh, believe me, it doesn't matter unless I badge in. But
It actually doesn't look too bad. But
I haven't. I can't. I cannot complain. I have a short commute. I have a real office with a real door. I cannot complain.
I mean, there are a lot of companies that are making it more difficult to
Yes.
complain. I know that the company I work for has rebuilt a new office in the Bay Area and also in Seattle area to make more space and to add more of the creature comforts to make people want to come back to the office. don't be, they are also having people come back to the office, and so none of us are really exempt from that movement. And I'm always like kind of conflicted about it because when I was doing consulting, I would always have FaceTime with customers where you'd be in the room, you'd be doing the whiteboard session thing, and the FaceTime and the actual real-time interaction can certainly help. But then COVID hit, and even the consulting clients I had, it was 100% remote, and I've been 100% remote since COVID and have not gone back to the office. And I've kind of learned a lot more ways of making the remote thing more effective. But there's certainly things I do miss a little bit from going into the office. But I think the key thing to that is office has to have people I'm directly interacting with where I'm getting more out of it. And it's not just hey, go back to the office, right? Hop on the Zoom.
No, I agree with that. I think that's kind of like the key factor. Like if the team that you're working with is co-located, and maybe this is a symptom because like like larger companies will have different like geo centers, right? But if the team that you're working with is co-located, then you start gaining the benefits of being in the office again, right? Like I do believe that the ability to tap on the shoulder is actually super nice. Right, like and I do run into those kind of like hallway conversations, which is somebody who I haven't seen in like 2 months, and they're like, "Oh, I'm working on this project," and suddenly you're like, "Oh, but I'm working on this thing too," and discover synergies, right? Like just because companies are sometimes too big and you don't know what anyone else is working on, right? But the the interesting thing I find is like we're doing this thing where like for Expedia Group it's like 3 days in the office and you kind of choose the 3 days. There's some hint on like the ones that they like, but it's also like if you don't happen to have the team on the same 3 days or everybody's there on the same 3 days, it's like herding cats, right? Like you start losing some of the benefits, and now it's just a grind on the commute because the person you wanted to talk to that it was off, right? But it's yeah, it's kind of it's almost like feels that to maximize the benefit of RTO, it's like the 5 days, but that is the thing that everybody hates. So yeah.
I personally believe our industry is going back full-time RTO, and it's not just our industry. And I feel this way because that's the way our society is designed. When you think about downtown Chicago, when you think about downtown New York or other major metropolitan areas, our world is designed around a centralization of labor. That centralization of labor, we built an entire, major cities around that concept. You're not going to redevelop downtown Chicago over a couple of years into condos, which means somebody's got to pay for the rent, somebody's got to pay for the taxes, somebody's got to pay for, the electricity for those big buildings. I don't see a path forward where RTO works long term, given where we are today. Shortly after COVID, the mayor of New York went down to Wall Street and he did a press conference and he said, "I get that all of you traders can do your work from home, and that's great. But the guys that do your dry cleaning, the guys that cater your lunches, the guys that do your deliveries, an entire economy dies if you stay home. Please come back to the office." And that's the part that, don't get me wrong, this is a daily thing with me and my team because we are distributed from day one. Spring has been around for over 20 years, and we have been distributed from the moment Spring became a thing. This is a very hard thing for my team. But as an industry, and as not even our industry, but as industry in general, I believe that I'm stunned that it's taken this long, and I'm waiting for somebody to drop some type of incentive that makes it, flip back to where people in mass go back to the office.
Yeah, it's all about monetization. It's a money thing, and it's for society, for money to be spent, to be games to exchange hands again. And, I'm telling you what, looking at the landscape, there are, I would say it's probably at least 50% of our industry is remote at this point, or, around there. And I think it works really well. But to Michael's point, it doesn't work for a lot of other people. And so, that's where I think the rub is. It's not about what's fair and what's not fair. It's about, it is kind of about society. Now, that being said, I am one of those that think, it also makes sense that you need to have a reason to go back to the office, not just go back because you have to go buy lunch. I want you to buy lunch every day to make these people some money. It doesn't make any sense because if you don't have that office collaboration there, that is actually an incentive for going back, there's not really a reason to do so. If it's a team that's a 1-person or 2-person team and they work well in different locations, I don't think there's any reason that they should need to go back. But again, like Michael says, we've seen with the government and with other higher entities, these pushes to get people back. And I think it's all about money. And that's a hard argument to have from a developer's point of view that, I can do my job perfectly at home and everything works great. When you look at the big picture and you have lots of people whose job don't work great if you stay at home.
So 2 things from my number one, I think it is more than just money. I do think there is still a lack of trust in this world. Like I do think that there is still an old guard of management that does not trust working from home, for better or worse. I see that
to see the buddies.
Yeah.
That's why Michael has a see-through window. I kid.
But I also think that it would be interesting if COVID happened in the late 90s. When our industry
was booming.
It was really was booming. Like when during the dot-com boom, if COVID hit. Because I think then things would have been established in a way that would have allowed for a longer term engagement this way. But because again, society has been built around this, I don't see a path forward otherwise.
Thank you. So you got to look at the other side of things too. I've thought about this a lot over the last 5+ years. People need to be innovative with it. I think there have been a lot of industries that have built up around people working from home as well. DoorDash, things like this. I mean, you want to have people going out to lunch and staying at home and working from home. You hook up these services where people cater to the people's
Zoom,
houses,
Slack.
things like this, right? Yeah, Zoom, Slack, all of these things. So in my mind, as a developer that does work remotely, it would be to everyone's advantage to start thinking more innovatively around people being more decentralized. And what can we do with the cities? There's got to be some innovative way to restructure the city and make it more tailored towards this type of a work situation, right? Towards the future.
So you're JP Morgan Chase. You own the Chase building in downtown Chicago, a massive piece of real estate. What do you do? Because I call them out specifically because the CEO of JP Morgan Chase has made it quite clear.
Mm-hmm.
You're going back to the office. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was in the news over this.
Yep.
He was.
So you are the CEO of JPMC. What do you do?
It's hard because you cannot even sell and convert that property to like
It's a fire. The property like that's a fire sale.
Yeah.
Pennies on the dollar if you want to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, at that type of scale, I think it's tough to develop a policy. So the policy has become everybody, I'm not going to discern. I'm just going to make it blanket so that I don't have to think about it. But I mean, like the way I've looked at it, like this group of 4 people would not exist without office-based. Like we met on a train ride from Chicago that we made
That's true.
because we had
Yep.
similar interest to going into user groups in the city and had an hour and a half to spend going back home together because of that, office that was there and not wanting to live near where we worked. But it was also because, the city is very much, it was an ideal place. It was the place where you'd have enough critical mass to have a group of people with very specific interests, in this case, Java-based software development, to come together, where out in the burbs, it's just more decentralized, and trying to find a clump of people that would be willing to meet at a shared location is difficult. And folks that have started working during the pandemic era are kind of missing out on just the unplanned interactions that said, hey, I find this interesting, I'm going to go to that. And all the people that independently, without knowing each other, make that same decision and then mingle at those places. You lose that connectivity if you don't have kind of a centralized location. So yes, there's certainly a boatload of money involved in these decisions and a boatload of laziness on trying to come up with specific policies. But I think we all acknowledge doing our work, we could be just fine doing it from the comfort of our own homes. But the interactions that we run into by chance would not have happened without those shared locations, those clustered locations where there's a lot of people coming together.
I mean,
That's
we're wired for that, right? Like
We are. No, I think there is something to that. So I mean, that's kind of the realization that I have, and it is one of the things that I miss about working from home over the last 5 years is everything is very intentional. We are here tonight, very intentionally record a podcast episode versus, hey, I just happen to be at the same Sea Jug meetup that you all happen to be at, and hey, we get to hang out for an hour and then another hour and a half on the way home by chance.
buy Dylan's, buy some tall boys, get the train.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of my current RTO policy, but I agree with you, Bob, that the critical mass that you can put together is that's irreplaceable.
Glass half full, guys. Glass half full, right? So there's
Never want to live in the city. I like to visit.
That's to be transparent. That's what I miss. I miss pre-COVID. There was a centralized office in the city for VMware or Pivotal, where I could go in and I would run into people or meet or let them know, hey, I'm coming in, so I can meet, run in, we can chat and whatnot. Like I miss those interactions because those don't happen anymore.
All right. Well, so yeah, I think we're gonna leave it at that. Essentially, it's coming. It's probably going to. My expectation is like Michael said, it's like there's gonna be a bigger push to like RTO, probably even more than what we're doing right now. Look at the positive, and it's something that we have done before, so we're not alien to it. We're just going back, and it's like waking up, right? Like, and you want to sleep more. That's how I feel like this is. It's like, come on, a couple more years before I really have to go every day, but it's fine. We'll go through it. And with that, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to this OffHeap episode. This is Freddie signing off.
Bob signing off.
Josh signing off.
Michael signing off. If you are listening on YouTube, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.
All right. We did it!
Yay.
We stop.